You are listening to the podcast When Life Gives You Lemons, presented by me, Emma Levy. Having worked with elite athletes for most of my career, it's always intrigued me that a significant number of high-performing individuals have encountered some form of adversity earlier in their lifetime. My fascination into this grew when I had my own brush with adversity, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in May 2020, in the midst of the global pandemic at the age of 36. During this period, I questioned whether it was my positive mindset or maybe something deeper, which enabled me to bounce back and to train and compete for a triathlon just 1 month following completion of all active cancer treatment. The goal of this podcast is to explore this concept further by meeting a variety of high-performing individuals who have experienced adversity but who have come back stronger. So today I'm welcoming Oritse Williams to the podcast. Oritse is the creator and founding member of JLS, one of the biggest boy bands of recent times. After becoming the runners-up on 2008's X Factor, JLS went on to become a multi-platinum award-winning band, selling over 6 million records worldwide, winning 5 Brit Awards and 2 MOBO Awards. In 2014, JLS took a break, and Oritse became involved in writing, developing, and mentoring other successful artists, and even co-founded a management company amidst involvement in other projects. Oritse is also well known for his charitable work and has recently been made a celebrity ambassador of the Multiple Sclerosis Trust. He's particularly passionate about advocating for young carers, having been a carer for his mum from a very young age. Thank you, Oritse. I know how busy you are. We're currently sitting backstage at the O2 Arena where you're going to be performing tonight.
Yes.
So thank you for giving us the time. I really do want to start at the beginning, and I want to ask you about JLS because I didn't realise that you were actually the guy that set up the band.
Yeah, it wasn't Simon Cowell, guys.
Brilliant.
It was me.
So can you tell us the story of how JLS came about?
Yeah, so when I was 12 years old, my mother was diagnosed with a condition called multiple sclerosis. And myself and my brother came up with this idea of trying to do whatever it took to find a cure for our mum. Our promise to each other was that I was going to become a successful musician. He was going to become some sort of medical scientist. And together we'd raise money and try and find a cure for our mum. Now, obviously, I did become a musician. And he graduated in biomedical science.
Oh, wow.
My little bro, Temmie. But what we realized as we got older, that kind of fairy tale, that kind of imagination as a child that anything is possible, curing mum and finding the cure for mum, wasn't going to be as easy as we hoped for as kids. But we did fulfill our promise to each other, and mum is very proud of us. And so when I was around 16 years old, I moved to Africa for a couple of years. I heard some of the best musicians I'd ever heard in my life. I came back to the UK and I knew I wanted to put together a group. So before that, I was aspiring solo singer. But for some reason, hearing like the vocal harmonies and collective vocals together, and just having that kind of sense of team, I guess, and family, it felt like, a kind of vocal harmony based group was the thing that felt to me like it was the right, move at the right time. So I came back, and after having that idea, I went out, basically advertised all around central London, all in the music shops, universities, colleges, sent out messages to friends, put up adverts at that time on MySpace, if you remember MySpace.
Yeah.
And said that I'm looking for members for a supergroup. I started studying groups of old. I'm talking about Boyz II Men, Temptations, all the way to Backstreet Boys and Jodeci and NSYNC, and all the best band male vocal groups that I could find, or performing groups that I could find over the years, that history showed had something special. And in my mind, I was just trying to put together something that had elements of them all in one group. And so I knew exactly the qualities that I was looking for in each of my bandmates, and I ended up finding them.
How did you find them?
Oh, well, yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. I remember. So I saw Marvin first On Top of the Pops when I was just in my living room at home watching TV, and he came up in another band. And I was like, that guy's got mad swag. Like he could sing, got swag, could dance. You know what I mean? He had good vibes, and there was energy from him that I was just like, that I need to find that guy. I need to see what he's doing. Thinking even if he's in that band, could I take him from that band? And I don't know why I felt that way, because obviously, I'm just this little kid Oritse who ain't got no management, no music industry experience, no label, no nothing. I didn't even know what any of that was at that time. I just knew that I was going to put this band together, and I knew who I wanted in the band. So I managed to find Marvin actually through a friend that knew him.
Wow. So
we ended up connecting, and the audition was me meeting Marvin in Oxford Street and him singing to me down the road. And people were just thinking, these boys are crazy, man. Who are these guys? Just one guy singing to this guy. And immediately I knew he'll be perfect for the group. So I was like, yeah, fire. Like, do you know what I mean? I would love for you to be part of the group. Then I reached out to Aston on MySpace. At that time, I was looking for somebody who could, had an extensive vocal range and also could do a few tricks and stuff like that. So I hit up Aston on MySpace. He sent me his number. I gave him a call. At that time, he was on the football pitch. And he was like, who's this? I was like, my name's Oritse. I'm putting this band together. I'd love for you to come and audition for it, if you're up for it. And he just said yes immediately.
Wow.
And I had no money at the time. So what I was doing was, there's a dance studio in Fulham called Dance Attic. And basically I was holding auditions there by using one of their empty rooms, sneaking into the dance studio, pretending like I was, I was part of one of the, the performances that were, or projects that were happening in the studios at that time, which I wasn't, right? But I just wanted to come across a little bit more professional, and not that I had no money, and I wanted to show, I didn't want them to think that, oh, this guy's got no money, no nothing, so what are we doing here? Yeah. So I thought, let me just try and look a little more pro. So I slipped into one of the empty rooms, and I said, yeah, this is where we're holding the auditions to Aston. And he was like, oh, he was quite impressed, So anyway, came in, he showed me amazing vocals, and then before he left, dropped one backflip. I was like, yeah, perfect, dope. So that was Marvin Aston. Me, Marvin Aston were a group for some time, and then it just felt to me like, it just felt a little empty. I felt like I needed one more member for the group. And I was telling the boys at the time that this group doesn't feel complete to me. So I then, when I was at university, I went to university, London Metropolitan, Holloway Road. And next door is Arsenal Stadium. And they were holding auditions for the X Factor at the time. And so in one of my lunch breaks, or one of my lectures, I snuck out one of my lectures. So it wasn't a lunch break, actually, it was in my lecture. So I cut out one of my lectures, literally went around the corner. As soon as I heard that there were auditions, someone said, Oritse, there's auditions being held. I said, I need to try and find the last member of my group. Mm-hmm. So I went down to the X Factor auditions. I was looking down the line to see if I could see anybody that might suit, and see if I could, steal them from Mr. Cow. There was no one that suited, but there was actually a talent agent that was scouting as well outside of the auditions. So I got speaking to them. Then I asked them, well, who you got on your roster? So they started showing me a long list of people on the roster, and I stopped at a certain guy, and I was like, who's that? They said his name's JB Gill. I was like, I need to speak to that guy immediately.
Well, you just liked the way he looked.
I just thought he to me suited the aesthetic of the group. Mm. But then I started asking them about, him vocally and stuff, and they said, oh, he's in development, he's really hardworking. Do you know what I mean? They were giving me a good kind of understanding of his character. Mm. So then I reached out to him on MySpace again, right? At this time as well, I was lining up pictures on my computer of each of us to see if the visual of the group, looked, right as well. Yeah. So for a while I had a picture of, Aston, me, and Marvin. So when I took JB's picture, before I even auditioned, I never told him this. Before I even auditioned him, I took his picture and I lined it up next to Marv. And I was looking at it, and I was like, Aston, me, Marv, and Jay. Like, the group looked good on from my screen. I just needed to make sure the talent was there as well. So anyway, I did the same thing, like how I auditioned Aston. JB reached back to me after I messaged him, said I'll be interested to definitely come and audition for you. I said, okay, wicked. So we linked up. I snuck into the dance studio one more time. Went into one of the rooms that were empty and no one was using. JB came in and he just hit me with this bad boy falsetto. I mean, his vocals were crazy sky high. And I was like, wow, we don't really have a member of group that's got that quality of falsetto. And just, he was just very passionate wanted to be, develop his songwriting. And, you could tell that, he was very focused, and he actually had something that we were missing. And also he had a very strong ear for harmonies. So going from a 3-part group to a 4-part harmony group, it makes a massive difference in the sound. And then I was singing and I asked him to harmonize with everything and anything that I was singing. So I would sing a line, do you know what I mean? The very first time that I saw your brown eyes, or whatever. And he would just harmonize with me immediately on the spot.
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa, this guy's dope. So I said to JB at that time, I said, bro, you're definitely in this group, man. I would love for you to be in this group, And he said to me, I'd love to meet the rest of the boys. So I said, look, come to the studio the following weekend. It was either a week or 2 weeks after I auditioned Jay, but it was very soon. And I called up Aston and Marvin and I said, look, I found the 4th member. So if you guys can come to the studio, such and such date, I want to put everyone together. So then we all got together that day.
What year was this?
This was 2007, I believe.
Okay.
We all got together, looked in the mirror, sang together, and it was like, I can't explain. I don't want to sound cliche, but the chemistry was undeniable.
Really?
Yeah, it was magic.
You
And
knew it.
yeah, straight away. We knew that this group, we didn't know how far we would go, but we knew that us as a quartet was the perfect vibe. Like it was the perfect lineup.
Yeah, and then just 1 year later, you're at the X Factor.
Shit, crazy.
And you get to be runners-up after Alexandra Burke. Do you remember the moment when you realised your life had changed?
So, obviously, we're talking about adversity here today. So what you wouldn't believe, and a lot of people don't know, is that the night before the X Factor audition, I was very ill. And we were rehearsing and I had no voice, like when we were rehearsing. And I was like, boys, I'm not going to be able to sing tomorrow. And Marvin in particular was going, no, Reece, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Like he really wanted me to sing, especially because when we were doing live shows, anytime I'd sing, there was always a reaction to my voice. I think because, I brought a soulful element to the group. So for live, that contribution, my vocal contribution to the group really had, quite an impact. And I feel like Marvin really, really, really was determined for me to sing. And Marv's like, nah, Reece, you've got to sing tomorrow. Don't worry, it'll be fine. You're just gonna come, it'll be fine. So I was like, oh my goodness. So now I'm shivering in my bed that night, sweats, everything. I was like so ill. And the next day came and it was audition day. Now, like there's a question mark whether my voice is going to come out or not in front of the judges. And this is the most important moment of our lives right now as a group. To be able to get through this stage is everything. Mm-hmm. So we turned up to the X Factor auditions, so many people there, just crazy amount of people there. And when we went into the judges' audition room, they asked us our names and my voice came out. I said, Oritse. They would go down the line. I said, my name's Oritse. Then my voice came out, but there's still a question mark whether the vocal would come out. Then we started, so then they asked us to perform and we were doing Shy If I Ever Fall in Love. And when we all sang and it came to my part and my voice came out, I was thanking the heavens and the stars. But I was saying to myself that in my mind, I was going, this moment right here is the moment, and I'm not going to let my group down, and I'm not going to let myself down, and I'm going to make sure that I do everything I can for us to get through this stage. So my voice came out, and I just like, I thank God. I felt like it was God that intervened, and my voice just came out. And then at the end of the performance, what was pretty incredible was that the judges all had their comments. And obviously, as everybody saw in the first audition, Simon Cowell picked me out to having a particular kind of appreciation for my voice. He felt like my voice really shined. And, I think where a lot of people would be like probably bigging themselves up and whatever else, for me, all I felt was like, I was just happy that I didn't let my boys down. I'm happy that I was able to bring something to the table, or I was able to perform in that moment. And the fact that he even pointed me out, I felt super proud, because I was like, wow, I've just been through 24 hours of hell, not sure whether my voice is going to come out or not. And not only did it come out, he actually showed me some love.
Yeah.
So that was hard. I loved that.
And how was the X Factor experience for you? Because, recently in the media, there's been some criticism.
Yeah.
And, I've seen people say things like they didn't have there's lack of consciousness of artist welfare. The creators only care about making money. You guys get forced into making contracts without independent legal advice. You're kind of mentally abused, manipulated. There's bullying. I don't know what you're allowed to say, but how was the experience for you?
I'll say exactly how the experience was for me. And the experience for me was an incredibly life-changing moment for me. Everybody's got their individual experiences, and I can't talk on everybody's experiences. But for me and the boys, it was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, it changed our lives, and you're going into a competition. And not only are you going to competition, you're going into a TV show. So there's got to be an element of understanding that it's going to be dog eat dog out there. And, you have to be responsible for how you go through the process. No one's forcing anyone to stay in the process. So if you don't like what you're experiencing, then you can just leave. But for us, and I think it's harder when you're a solo going through a show like that, because it's very intense. Every single week, learning new songs, new routines, a lot of commitments during that time. It's a boot camp, it's a fast track, but a boot camp into the music industry, because you're learning so many things that would take people 10 years to learn. You're learning them all at once in a matter of months, and having to perform to the best of your ability and being in front of millions and millions of people. And at the time that we were on the show, I think the show was at its peak.
Yeah.
The numbers were insane. It was the main television show in the UK. Families would sit together and watch it religiously. I watched it religiously before being a part of it myself. So it was the part that was hard for me was actually not being able to be around for my family as much as I thought I would be, or I wanted to be. Knowing that my mum was going through, this was a period, what was really difficult for me was, this was the period where my mum was going through the biggest kind of digression in her diagnosis of multiple sclerosis than over all these years. She had remained somewhat a little bit like stable over a certain time, but from our first audition, she was on crutches, and I was trying to help her, and she wanted to support me and be there for my first audition. By the time we came out of the X Factor, my mum was wheelchair bound.
So there's a big deterioration in that period.
Yeah. So you can imagine the guilt, the pain, that's what was difficult for me.
Yeah.
Although she was proud and she was happy and everything else, and she never complained about her health once or anything like that, which amazes a lot of people. My mum was a young woman when she was diagnosed and going through this transition.
How old was she when she was diagnosed with MS?
My mum's now 66, and I'm now 30, what am I? 36. And so she must have been in her 30s, right?
Yeah.
Like if I was 12. Yeah.
So you were 12. And do you remember the period when she got diagnosed? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened?
I do remember, like my mum, she was having a lot of MS attacks. So I didn't know what they were. Like she was collapsing at times and on the floor and delirious, couldn't move her legs. And, you know, I would be there trying to pull her up and, you know, and get her into a safe space. And, you know, ambulances come in quite frequently to our home.
Was this before her diagnosis or after?
This was kind of, because I didn't know what MS was, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I didn't know what was happening. I was so young.
Yeah.
So in terms of her diagnosis, I can't actually remember anyone coming to me and going, your mum's got multiple sclerosis. Like, I don't remember that.
Do you think that would have been helpful, looking back?
I was so young, I wouldn't even know what it is. And people are adults and don't even know what multiple sclerosis is now. Do you know what I mean? So I think having a lot more support would have been helpful, which is why I'm such an advocate and champion for young carers and young carers getting the support that they need. Because I think understanding, you know, what you're having to deal with and what your loved one is going through is so crucial. Never really had that. It was almost like mum's just not well and we just dived in, me and my brother and my sister.
Really?
Yeah.
Was your dad around or not?
Not really. My dad was a traveling businessman. And yeah, it kind of like, I ended up pretty much being the man of the house because I was the eldest.
So you were only 12.
Yeah.
So how did that look like, being the young carer for your mum?
Yeah.
How much were you actually having to do?
So it was all the daily tasks, you know, shopping, cooking, cleaning, washing, you know, everything that she would have done for us before, you know, I now had to do. And what I wanted to do was give my younger brother Temi and my little sister Naomi, you know, as they were growing up, I wanted them to have as much of their childhood as possible. Now my sister was very young, you know, which is very tough.
How old was she?
She's about 10 years younger than me.
So she was 2?
So she was 2 years old. My mum had this baby that was 2 years old. And she was struggling to get through that period, right? And it was tough because we had actually lived in the Caribbean for a little bit when we were kids as well. And unfortunately, my mum had an ectopic pregnancy, where, and I've never told anyone this, but she literally nearly lost her life. If it wasn't for, you know, me and my brother, you know, going to her aid, my brother in particular, who woke up and ran next door, because my mum was calling for us in the middle of the night.
Oh gosh.
And we were living in Tobago, and it was a very rural place, like no one around. You know, we were going to grow up as Caribbean kids, like, you know, like in the West Indies.
Oh wow.
We were never going to come back to the UK. So not you know, not to live, like maybe to visit, but not to live. And luckily the neighbors called the ambulance in time, and the you know, got the medical professionals, you know, took our mum in, and and if they said if we were any later, that maybe our mum wouldn't be around.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was super tough.
Yeah, and
really,
then
really
is that
tough.
why you moved back to the UK then?
Yeah, so we moved back to the UK because my mum wanted to be closer to her mum, my grandmother, who's no longer around, but who came from Jamaica. And my mum just I think she just needed to be around her mum. So we moved back to the UK as a family. And then, yeah, we then, you know, continued schooling here.
Yeah. But being a young carer, what were the implications on your schooling?
Oh, they were massive. I was always falling asleep in school, tired from my young carer's duties. You know, I was like at my books, but, you know, my head was like down and my hands on my table. And also, yeah, just other kids not understanding. So sometimes I'd find myself in fights in different predicaments.
Were you bullied?
Yeah, I mean, if someone cussed my mum because, you know, at that time, going to school, sometimes kids were relentless. If someone, you know, what you call cuss my mum, like, do you know what I mean? If they insulted my mum or whatever else, just as a joke business, do you know what I mean? That's, for me, that's like, then we're, you know, I'm ending up in fights. I'm ending up in different things in school where that was so away from my character. Because growing up, I was a really soft boy. Do you know what I mean? I was quite a bit too soft. So my parents put me in martial arts. My mum used to take me to martial arts, which I still do today, because she was like, this boy needs to toughen up, because I was a gentle kid, you know? And she could see that I'm easily bully target, easily walked over, you know. They always saw that in me. Very vulnerable, very innocent kid.
Yeah. And did you ever hold resentment for your siblings or for your dad for the fact that you did take the majority of the tasks?
Yeah, I held some resentment for my father, to be honest, in all honesty. You know, which I'm now kind of getting over. You know, I've kind of got over it many years ago. But with my siblings, no. Like, my siblings, I think I've had moments of frustration whereby I used to think to myself, look, guys, like, sometimes see, you know, what I've had to lead the way doing, you know what I mean? So maybe have a little, maybe just, you know, typical thing that siblings go through, at moments you just want there to be a little bit of realization, do you know what I mean? I don't need to thank you, but just realize, do you know what I mean? And, but what I've learned and what we've learned together over the years, and especially when I did the radio documentary with BBC World Service, Kids Who Care, which I spoke about some of my own personal journey in there. And that personal journey, I actually wanted my little brother Temi and my sister Naomi and my mum to be a part of, because one thing we never really had is we've never actually had a discussion about how we all felt growing up. And I think from my perspective, I feel like I could have had a little bit more patience at times with my siblings, because actually they were going through their own pain and their hurt and what they were feeling by, you know, our mum not being well and my sister being 10 years younger than me and being the only girl and not being able to do the things that mum and daughter would love to do. They never had those moments. Very, very tough.
But you were so young. Like, where was the state? Where was the NHS?
So the NHS, they did provide like booklets and we had to administer medication for our mum. So like there was injections and stuff like that, you know, it should be adult medical professionals administering. And that was left to me and my siblings.
That's a massive responsibility.
A huge responsibility. My younger brother, who, you know, is very courageous, he kind of led the way with administering that. And which I you know, I'll always love him for, because, you know, that was difficult. That was very difficult, you know, to inject your parent, like, or your loved one. You know, it's crazy when I really think about it. And so, yeah, I mean, we didn't have major NHS intervention. Like, I'm still a big supporter of the NHS, because I feel like we're very lucky to have them. I feel like a lot of, you could be born anywhere, but actually being born in the UK and having that kind of support, you know, that we have, you know, and I think they're overrun a lot of the time, and I think they're under a hell of a lot of pressure. A lot of the time, unfairly. I don't think they get paid enough. I don't think they themselves are supported enough. The nurses and the doctors, being in hospitals over the years with obviously mum and for other reasons, I've just seen them they're just overworked. And it's tough on them. So
you don't put any blame on them for leaving you guys alone to look after your mum?
Absolutely not. I think everybody that's in the NHS and in the kind of medical field are there because they are the most amazing, loving, empathetic, compassionate people. And so for me, it's like the only reason why maybe sometimes they may have not been there in the way that we would have appreciated it was because we were one of millions of people, you know, needing them, and them may not have enough staff to be able to, you know, I guess be there for everybody,
Yeah.
right? They're doing the best that they can do under the circumstances. And so I'm understanding of that.
Yeah. And do you think things have changed now, and the work that you're doing to kind of advocate for young carers, do you think things have improved, or do you think it's fairly similar out there?
Oh no, things are definitely improved. Not enough, but there's been improvement. I had attended the Young Carers Festival that takes place yearly, and I couldn't believe it. There was almost 1,000 young carers that get for a number of days to just be kids. Like there's bouncy castles, you know, painting, poetry. I took a spoken word poetry class at the festival.
Nice.
I don't know if you want to call it class. It was more of an experience because I found my way of being able to deal with some of my emotions through music, songwriting, poetry. Anything that was like creative writing was a big part for me in terms of my outlet.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to share that experience with them.
Yeah.
So we got a group of young carers together. We all sat on the grass and sat around each other. And I encouraged them to come up with a spoken word piece or a poetry piece collectively. Everyone, and then by us doing that, they all felt even closer than ever before, because it's like all of these individual experiences that are being shared and all come together to make this kind of this beautiful creative piece.
Yeah.
And then they felt so proud of themselves, and I felt so proud of them, because they were like, wow, we've all wrote a poem together. Some of them had never written a poem before.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it was amazing. And then I remember the Children's Society, who are a big part of the organizers of the festival. The Children's Society published the poem online, and there was you could see so many comments and messages and people going, wow, Oritse, this is amazing. And I said, look, I don't want to take any credit for this. All I wanted to do was prompt them and encourage them and just pull that creativity out of them to say, look, you can express yourself and we can do it in a creative way.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you talked about the guilt you felt when you were away with JLS and the X Factor and your mum deteriorated. And MS is a disease where they do deteriorate over time, don't they? So how do you cope with that now with your mum and the knowledge that she does continue to deteriorate?
So there's two types of MS. There's progressive MS and there's relapsing remitting MS. The progressive MS obviously is the most it's the toughest because obviously there's a progression of health getting worse. And yeah, it's been hard. Like mum has been stable for a long time. And in terms of when I mean stable, she's wheelchair bound. Her hands tremor, and it's hard for her to be able to hold a knife and fork or a cup steady to just have a drink of water or a cup of tea. You know, she can't really walk at all. But she used to do physio, whereby they would help her with this kind of new kind of apparatus. They would help her just take a couple of steps down a hallway and back, but all assisted. And she, you know, mum's eyesight isn't the greatest anymore, and she coughs a lot, right? So it's hard to eat sometimes because she coughs a lot due to the neurological condition, right? Last week was really tough for me because I went to see mum, and her physiotherapist was there, and I took some time to sit with the physiotherapist, and I asked her if she could give me a little bit of update where mum is. And for the first time in many years, she said that my mum started to deteriorate. Super tough for me.
Yeah.
Super tough. To the point where I didn't even tell my little sister.
Really?
Yeah. I told my younger brother, but I didn't tell my sister because I don't want her to hear that, you know? And so the first thing I did was, it's crazy. Obviously, I became an ambassador for the Multiple Sclerosis Trust.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I've just become an ambassador of this organization, this charity that basically has so many facets to it. And one of them is having medical professionals actually help people who are diagnosed with MS, and having some sort of intervention there. So the charity that I became ambassador for recently, I'm now looking to for support myself. I was going to be a part of that charity to support them, and for me it was all about me supporting them and supporting their message. But I didn't realize that I was going to have to lean on them so soon. And so I've had to lean on them, because I said to them, look, I'd really appreciate anything you guys can help me with. My mum's multiple sclerosis has started to take another turn for the worst. So I just need some support. I need some help. And, they put me in touch with some medical professionals who I've been speaking to, and who are going to come and see mum at some point and just see where she's at. Because it's tough, like I know mum, is in a place where people might think, well, she's in a wheelchair all the time anyway. So if she can't assisted walk with, certain apparatus down there and back, and she can only walk 2 steps now, there's no difference. But there is a difference, because actually, my mum's a human being.
Yeah, of course.
And being in that vulnerable position that she's in, holding any last bit of, dignity and independence is everything. Is everything. If she can still hold a fork to eat and be able to eat independently, that's everything. Things that people take for granted. And just because she's got a disability doesn't mean she's not a human being. Just because she makes it seem like it's effortless doesn't mean that she's not thinking like, well, I used to be well and I used to be able to do all these things on my own. Like she's a human being at the end of the day. And people that have been diagnosed with illnesses and had, different kind of health, difficulties are still human beings. But what happens I feel like in society is that a few things, because it's not happening to you, it's like, oh, you don't feel it as much. But if it happened to you, or if it happened to someone close to you, suddenly now the empathy is there. Suddenly now the understanding is there. But it feels distant. But actually it's a lot closer than we think. Because anything can happen at any particular point in life. To us or those who we love. And people forget that.
Absolutely. And I always say as well, I think when I was ill, I remember being very acutely aware that I sometimes felt it was harder for the people around me than for me. You know what I mean? And I think it's really hard for the loved ones around the person that's suffering, because actually you're a bit less in control of what's going on.
Absolutely.
But it's, it sounds like you've done so much for your mum, and I mean, I'm sure she's very proud of you.
I'm proud of her, to be fair.
Oh.
Yeah. I really believe that the strength I found was the strength that was born in me from being a young carer, in all honesty. And this is what I tell all young carers every time I meet them, that ultimately the characteristics that they develop from their care and responsibilities will hold them in good stead in life for anything they go through. And when you meet young carers, you find that there's a maturity way beyond their years, that sometimes you're sitting down, you're speaking to a 16-year-old kid, and you're like, wow, you sound so mature. You've got this kind of this maturity that you wouldn't expect to be in such a young person. And I know that for me and my siblings, or my siblings and I, that's what it's been as well. Like, a lot of people have always said over the years, oh, you guys are so mature. You're so mature. You're so mature. Well, it's because we've had major responsibilities that we've had to really grow up quickly in many ways, which is why I try to keep my younger siblings as young as possible.
Yeah. So I talk a lot about resilience on this podcast. And really what you're saying is you had that innate resilience because of what you'd been through.
100%.
So do you think you were born resilient, or do you think it was developed through your situation?
I think my resilience was definitely developed through my young care and responsibilities, and growing up with and looking after my family as a very young kid. I definitely feel like resilience was born there. But however, is a part of resilience born in me? Yes, I believe so. Yeah. The reason being was, I'm half Jamaican, half Trinidadian. So I come from a Caribbean family. And if you know the history of Africa and the Caribbean, I'm a descendant of human beings that were part of the slave trade and had gone through a lot of adversities for me to be here today, sitting in the O2, drinking fresh water. I recognize that my ancestors had been through a lot for me to be here today. And in the UK, they had been through a lot. They had been through making it in the worst type of environments, on ships coming from Africa to the Caribbean, packed out, overpacked ships, and with massive amounts of their people.
So do you think thinking about your ancestry helps drive you forwards as well? Definitely.
I think when you know where you've come from, you can know where you're going. And I believe that a lot of young people, especially like in our country, and I'm talking especially in the African Caribbean community, I feel like they could really benefit from knowing their ancestry and knowing just what it took for us to be here today.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these things get lost in history. And sometimes people don't really, they just think, oh yeah, I'm just here, and it is what it is. But actually there's been a lot of people that have suffered, in our lineage for us to be here today. Yeah. And I think about that. Sometimes I can't believe it. I'm on stage at the O2 Arena in front of thousands of people. Like, this is the moment, this is beyond anything my ancestors could have hoped for. They were just fighting for, for us to have clean water and food and a roof over our head.
Yeah.
But to be experiencing what I'm experiencing now, to do what I've done to the level that I've done, and to keep going. I mean, this would be beyond all of their dreams come true.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that. And I recognize that I'm somebody's ancestor right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the truth. We are all somebody else's ancestors for the future. So everything we're doing today, whether it's this incredible podcast that you have, and this incredible story that you have, at some point, some member of your family in the future is going to be, wow, this is what this Emma person that's related to me, you know what I mean, had been through and done. So maybe I can get through this.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So you've used that, your resilience. Any other strategies that you've used, like tangible strategies that you've used to kind of get you where you are today?
So I believe for me to be able to get through a lot of the adversity that I've got through, I've highlighted it as emotional therapy, psychological therapy, and physical therapy. So for me, and spiritual therapy, sorry. So the emotional therapy is me writing songs and really being able to see my feelings or hear my feelings in the form of songwriting, poetry, spoken word, music. That's how I deal with my emotions. My psychological therapy is having great people around me, friends and family, that I'm able to lean on and that are able to show me that actually, you know, this is a testament to your character. My aunt Carol, she said to me, you know, your character is defined by the adversity that you go through and how you overcome that. So psychologically for me, it gives me a sense of, not that anybody wants to go through the things that I've gone through in my life, but it makes it feel like it's not all meaningless.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So psychologically, it puts me in a better space because I'm like, okay, cool. I've gone through this genuinely for a reason. And now this is building my character to who I am today. Yeah. And I'm proud of who I am today.
Yeah.
Physical therapy, as I mentioned before, martial arts.
Yeah.
My mum put me in martial arts as a very small kid. And I never gave up on that. My martial art has changed because I used to do karate, and I lost a fight in school when I got bullied by this kid, and I realized that this isn't working for me in real life, so I ended up doing Muay Thai.
Okay.
Thai boxing.
Yeah. I often harp on about the importance of exercise.
Yes.
And the importance of movement and just physical therapy, like you said.
Absolutely.
Because it helps our mind as well as our body.
It helps our mind as much as our body.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much about myself in that gym, and as a martial artist.
And what's evident to me from speaking to you earlier as well is how important music is to you.
Yeah.
And then 2020, you had your JLS comeback. But I think actually it might have been delayed because of COVID to 2021.
Yeah.
But around then, when you came back and you had this comeback and you're standing on the stage or performing or making music, how did that feel to have come from where you were to where you'd got to?
At the time, my wife this was one of our first, one of our dates as well. And she came to watch the performance at the one show where we performed outside and pretty much shut down the Radio 1 area, which is pretty crazy. It was like I had climbed a very, very steep mountain, and I'd finally reached the top of it with no threats along the way. Yeah. No, that I had before. You know, snakes trying to bite my ankles, and tigers trying to claw at me, and bears trying to run for me. And I'd been through the entire journey, and I'd made it out alive.
Amazing. What is the future for Oritse?
So the future is always going to revolve around music, and anything as an extension of that. I had released my first single of my debut EP, Showdown, which came out recently, and I can't believe the reaction to that. I can't believe that as we sit here today, I'm number 5 in the Black music charts.
Congratulations.
Which is amazing. I wasn't expecting to get recognized in any chart, in all honesty. I was just putting out music. So to be in a chart amongst, incredible artists within my culture, my community, it feels real good, let alone to be in any chart. And so it just shows me that, wow, it's tough being in a group and then transitioning to solo, especially when you've got the comfort of, other people around you for so many years. But it's something that I felt now that I'm ready for. I'm ready for it. And my music is ultimately a fusion of my life experiences, my culture. You hear West Indian, African, UK R&B energy. And with the reaction from the fans and the support that I'm getting from pretty much absolutely everybody, it's definitely encouraging me to keep on going. I've got some more records coming. I'm constantly writing. I've got thousands of records, in all honesty.
Wow,
and I'm ready to release real soon.
That's super exciting. Final question I always ask my guests is, if you could go back in time to when things were at their toughest, what do you wish you could have told yourself?
What a question. Wow. When things were toughest, I mean, I've had quite a few tough times. But if I could go back to being a child, when my mum was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which was going to be the thing that was going to change me and my family's future for the rest of our lives, I would have said to myself that don't be so hard on yourself, because I was really hard on myself as a kid, really hard on myself, really thinking to myself, look, if I haven't done this for mum and it's or done that good enough, then I'm not at my best, or I'm not doing enough. I was very hard on myself. I always thought I wasn't doing enough for mum, but actually she was like, you're doing way more.
Sounds like you went above and beyond.
Yeah. And then she really made me reassure me of that. But I guess when you still see her struggle as a kid, you're like, well, it's not enough. It's never enough. So I would have told myself, Oritse, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, being hard on myself, obviously I had pushed to achieve everything that I've achieved today. I dug really deep down inside of myself with a relentless amount of determination, and work ethic, but just too hard on myself. And so now what I do is I enjoy moments a lot more. I enjoy moments a lot more. So this tour, I've been having the time of my life.
Nice.
So the solo record coming out, Showdown, and all of the not little actually. My wife keeps on telling me to remind myself that the moments that, I say that I modestly say, oh, they're small moments. Actually, they're big moments, especially with the solo record and all of the wins that I've had so far with it. And so I celebrate those things.
Yeah. And it's exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Oritse. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you for being such a superstar. Before chatting today, for me, you were just one of the members of JLS. And then I now realize you are much more than what we see on social media, what we see on TV, and your charitable endeavors are commendable. And I just look forward to seeing how you can use your platform to make changes to young carers' lives, as well as raising awareness for multiple sclerosis. So thank you so much, Oritse.
Thank you, Emma.